Welcome, everyone, to this contest of champions. In the past, I and so many others have gone over aspects of the game design of Monster Hunter, digging deep into the intricacies that lie beneath, weapon mechanics, game gimmicks, monster movesets, and more. Clearly a very good topic considering the sheer breadth of videos you can make about these elements. Very rarely, however, do we see the other type of analyses, the ones that look outside the game design of Monster Hunter. Videos looking at the symbolism, the character, the ideas throughout, and so much more. So today, I thought I could try and alleviate this issue of mine through a thought experiment. If so much of Monster Hunter and its identity is dictated by elements, then what do the elements represent? How much do these forces of nature impact the monster? And how well do these monsters utilize, revolutionize, or embody that element? What are the monsters that, in my mind, are the elemental kings? Obviously, there are some rules to lay down, so let's go through them right now. Rule number 1, only one monster per category. If a monster has been chosen as the master of an element already, then no other can contend with the spot. Rule number 2, the focus on the list is on the element of that category exclusively. So, if a monster within, say, the fire category also has an ailment like poison alongside that element, I am only counting the content related to that element specifically. Same goes for a monster if they have multiple elements. Speaking of multiple elements, rule number 3. I am putting a hard cap on multi-element monsters, either downright restricting them or only allowing them to qualify for one element. Frontier especially loved this concept, often either using multiple elements on a monster throughout the fight, or multiple elements that are rolled together into one super element, such as with Shantian's Tenshao element, a combination of fire, water, and lightning. Rule number 4, weapons or gear do not count for evaluating the elements of a determined monster, or for picking one. So, for example, Bazelgeuse's weapons are primarily blast-focused, and so is his armor. However, Bazel, despite having an affinity towards explosives, does not inflict blast blight at any point in the fight. Meaning that, despite everything the weapons and armor say, Bazel's affinity is first and foremost fire, and as such is to be looked at through that lens. And finally, rule number 5. A rule that I cannot stress enough. This video is not about the strongest monster of each element. Measuring the respective dick size of each monster is just not a fun topic, and more importantly, dilutes the conversation into the equivalent of a versus or power scaling debate. It would get super stale and obvious on what monsters are the winners in each category, and I'm not for that. The focus of this video is instead on analyzing the components that make up these monsters, what the elements mean in a broad sense, then within the context of Monster Hunter, and what monsters either embody those aspects of the elements the best, and or their utilization of the element in new, unique ways. So, if you're someone who obsesses over power scaling and statistics, then please kindly dump all that knowledge in the garbage bin right outside the door, for this is a character household. Understand all that? I hope so, because I'm not gonna waste any more time on this opening section. Dozens of monsters may vie for the crown of elemental mastery, but only 5 will be inaugurated on this day. Who will it be? And what better element to get everyone accustomed to the style of this video than with the first of the archetypal elemental trinity, fire. Often portrayed as a very chaotic element, fire is characterized as the element of destruction, chaos, as well as negative emotions like rage, spreading from one tree to another, like a disease ready to burn away all that remains. A fact that many people have seen all too frequently in recent years, unfortunately. As a result, many mythologies, religions, and even pieces of fiction often use fire as a symbol of the greatest evils in existence. Satan, hell, demonkind, and characters like Sauron and Hades, just to name a few. Despite all of its negative implications, however, we mustn't forget all the good fire has done for our world, and you needn't look any further than our very own sun to understand this. For as often as it is as an element of evil and destruction, fire is also frequently shown as an element of the divine, of God's judgment, of creation springing forth from a primeval flame, a single spark in existence, and of mankind's ingenuity and free thought. It was, after all, Prometheus in Greek mythology who stole fire from Mount Olympus, granting mankind the ability to survive, cook food, provide warmth, craft, and more. If it wasn't for our ancestors learning how to make the first campfires, none of us would have been able to last through those cruel and endless winter nights. And with the use of fire, we are provided many fantastical wonders like energy, light, metallurgy, and heat. Just as fire is synonymous with the divine, both good and evil, an argument can be very easily made that fire is the element of mankind, a symbol of passion and progress that when carefully controlled, changes the very world around us. While not exactly able to translate all those metaphorical aspects of fire into gameplay, the monsters of Monster Hunter understand the simpler arts of the firebender as a beautiful dance of flame, scorching opponents with long-range fireballs, roasting hunters to a nice crisp with waves and breaths of pyre, and heating the very air around them to cook everything within their vicinity. As a chemical reaction, monsters who take up this oath cannot afford to be defensive in the slightest, and have to be constantly on the offensive. And those that do have armor or defensive capabilities generally utilize the subsect of lava, minerals, and our planet's molten core to ensure nothing can even harm them. Stats-wise, Fatalis takes the cake easily owing to its nature of owning the hottest flames in continuity. Hell, even Dalmadur might make a good argument, seeing how he might as well have the heat of a star in his chest. But, once again, this is about embodying the element and using it in new creative ways. And for that, Lunastra. May 31st of 2018. A day that shall forever be etched upon my mindscape, written out in the language of pain and anguish. The voices of thousands of fans, old and new, being snuffed out in an instant, silent scream. Hushed murmurings of doubt, of the monster being nothing more than a blue Teostra, something that couldn't be as bad as what we had previously been up against, vanquished in an instant. Upon their dying words, a legend was born. The Queen of Hellfire and Matrimony had returned, and not even the deepest, fiery pits of hell could compare to her wrath. In what is perhaps the biggest revamp of a monster I have ever seen, Lunastra's entire identity had been reforged, molded into a lioness truly worthy of leading the armies of brimstone and desolation. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes of its prior incarnation, birthed anew. The outcry from people was instantaneous. No matter the instance, no matter the quest, Lunastra always proved to be an incessant wildfire that just wouldn't go out. And as word grew, so too did her infamy. to the point where I can confidently declare her one of the most controversial monsters in the entire franchise, a position only contested by a select few. Which, understandable considering certain aspects of it in Iceborne. But allow me to make an argument and say that this is absolutely fitting and perfect for the Empress of Flame. In terms of theming, Lunastra absolutely nails the violent nature of fire, always on the ass of the hunter as a physical speedster, burning away life actively with fire blight, and stacking the pressure even further with the puddles she leaves behind. Combined with the damage over time of the puddles and the wind pressure she commands, able to direct the angle of the flames or just stun hunters, and the player is on a ticking time bomb at all times. A bomb that literally goes off with her hell flare, casting the area in a supernatural glow and saying, "Fuck you, fuck your allies, fuck your build, fuck you, die." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how salt is made. So what if, and hear me out, what if the key to winning against Lunastra is to not treat her like Teostra?
What? No way.
A shocking concept, I know, but it is honestly the truth. Many of the troubles that occurred, speaking from my own personal experience, came about as a result of rushing into that wildfire and getting too close without proper protection. The result I got from it? Lots of burning. But if there is one thing that the hot stove proves useful for, it is as a lesson. Surface burns? Don't touch it or turn it off. Fire occurring in a building? Get a fire extinguisher. The sun looking down on you or the air feeling hot? Get some protective gear to cover yourself up. Lunastra, in a manner that would be repeated by other future monsters such as Behemoth and Elatrion, was a teacher. A harsh drill instructor putting us through rigorous trials to shape us into capable hunters prepared for what the future holds. Instructing us on the importance of skills like windproof, tools like the fireproof mantle, environmental booms like crystal burst and water pods to douse the fire, quick reacting items like max potions or great sushi fish scales to recover lost health, and being just as aggressive as her. Now, of course, the monster community didn't remember this lesson by the time of Elatrion, but Lunastra was a monster that more than any other taught players the importance of being prepared. Sure, you might not be able to deal with everything she throws at you, you might still get knocked on your side, but that's the duty of a drill instructor. Everything about Lunastra's personal identity was remodeled by Flame, forged to be sent as a harsh messenger to the earth below, and from it, we too would be reborn anew. A gift from heaven bathed in the fires of hell. I couldn't ask for anything more fitting. A lot of the symbolism behind this element is one I've already covered in a past video of mine, but that video is pretty dated by this point both in production, scripting, and voiceover, so I might as well take this opportunity to redo bits of the general symbolism. Water is viewed as a soft element by a lot of people, especially when compared offensively to powerhouses like earth, fire, or lightning. And I can't blame them. It's all rooted in the origins of life and this planet, of course, where from specks of dust and rock over millions of years formed into the blue giant we see today. And from those ancient oceans rose the first living organisms and microbacteria. The ocean is literally the cradle for all life that calls Earth home, and many ancient civilizations like that of Egypt were defined by their connection to the sea and rivers. With such an inherent connection, it is no wonder that the element of water is analyzed in a life-giving sense, often viewed multiple times throughout history and other cultures as a medium by which the sick and injured are healed, and miracles are performed. Purification, healing, passivity, and a calm state of mind. You know, lovey-dovey shit. Oh, but don't you go dissing the ocean and all the little fishies residing there. For outside of all the freaks of nature hiding deep in the dark abyss, there is also a great and terrifying power that laughs in the face of our man-made towers and society. The power of a tsunami, the force of thousands of pounds of water, sweeping into a city and washing away everything, is fucking terrifying. Indeed, despite all of our claims of conquering the elements with technology and determinism, the ocean is still a fearsome leviathan, not so easily vanquished. Even the mightiest ships can only wait and hope for good tidings on the sea, knowing that a storm can easily throw everything off balance. Raging winds as the tide swirls and curls, relentlessly bombarded by a maelstrom of rain and thunder, all while a monster could potentially be stalking from below, ready to drag some poor overboard sap down under. We are all subject to the tides and pull of the ocean, exploring an element that is not of our nature. And should we be blessed to instead contend with Mother Nature's gentler side, time is still against us. As David Tennant of Doctor Who fame puts it,
"Water is patient, Adelaide. Water just waits. It wears down the cliff tops, the mountains, the whole of the world. Water always wins."
Those who take the mantle of waterbending often go with a support role, the main healer or mage backing up the party from the sidelines, and at the most dire using tendrils and jets of water to push away opponents or reposition. That doesn't mean, however, that they are completely reliant on others, for it is often the others that come to the waterbender for aid. Those who truly master and understand the element of Poseidon are the greatest thinkers and strategizers out there, adapting to whatever situation comes at them with finesse and precision, ensuring that they all make it out alive, all while looking elegant doing so. And should the situation call for a little more brutality, well, they are more than willing to change their flow. It was a tough competition between two monsters, but ultimately, there had to be a winner. And so, to find our King of Neptune, we are going to have to go down into the abyss. Way down. I promise, this video isn't going to be just Elder Dragons. But god damn it, Monster always makes the Elder Dragons the most interesting case studies. Can you really blame me? Despite the reluctance to put another Elder Dragon on the list, however, I should remind myself and others that just because the answer is obvious doesn't mean it is the wrong answer. It would also be remiss of me to not bring back up Rule 3 of this video, the thing about multi-elements. While yes, Namiel has electricity mixed into the equation, making the overall analysis of purely water a bit more messy, the combination of the two still at the end of the day ties into and plays with Hydros. With all that cleared out of the way, can I start off by saying just how sick of a concept Namiel is? Channeling the deepest fears and mysteries of the pitch black sea bottom into a mesmerizing display of familiar colors and shapes, the master of the torrent is an adeptus of adaptability. Owing to the pressure of its home, Namiel shows an incredible resistance to the elements wielded by the hunters, shaking off the efforts of more elementally focused weapons like the dual blades without much effort. As a drawback, however, its hide isn't exactly prepared for the force of a semi-truck ramming into it at full speed. You know, kind of like those blobfish who can't stand the sudden pressure shift from the depths and just collapse. With a little bit of recycling though, Namiel completely reverses the fortune of the hunters through hydration, turning what were once efficient butcher blades into the equivalent of butter knives. All of this wouldn't be so bad, especially with a party of 4 using various weapon types, if it wasn't also for the fact that this monster is a master strategist. As if walking around the Coral Highlands with wet armor sticking to you wasn't bad enough, dodging jets and blobs of water along the way, Namiel also manipulates the field to its advantage by laying down water on the terrain, and with its trap card set, Namiel can either sway the ocean currents through drags and pulls to disorientate hunters, or electrocute the very ground you're standing on into explosions of steam. The true toaster in a bath experience! Everything about Namiel is a masterclass in misdirection. From the assumption I guaranteed most of us went with by using electricity weapons, only to see the monster itself using electricity once charged, to the slippery, tricky movements it employs, sudden flying only to spring back down onto the ground like a jellyfish, the utter helplessness you are subjected to caught in those currents, and the manipulation of physical and elemental weaknesses through its different modes. It truly captures the feeling of being stuck at sea, contending both with the ocean's pull and sway, and the torrential rain, winds, and lightning hanging above your head, forcing the player to acknowledge the surroundings and redefine what can even be considered a safe zone, thanks to the tremendous area coverage and reach this slippery bastard has. Without a temperance of aggression, hunters will find themselves quickly chewing through their supply of nullberries and taking needless hits. But without taking chances and trying to close the gap, the battle will never truly end. Namiel will keep making distance, covering more of the arena in water, and eventually end off the quest with one giant spark. It is a tough conundrum to go up against, but a really fun one to work out once you understand the ins and outs. Plus, the tempered and arc-tempered equivalents of the fight have some neat changes, like modifying the frequency of its hydration state, creating more puddles from its attacks, and being able to cause chain reactions to puddles placed farther away. Graceful, mysterious, beautiful with a spice of unnerving horror, Namiel exemplifies the duality of Mother Gaia's favorite element. The second of the archetypal elemental trinity, ice is a strange one when you think about it. For the element of ice is no element at all. Cold is just the absence of heat. Ice is just frozen water stuck together. Snow is just the result of rain cooling and sticking together as it falls to the ground. Many games could just simply stick ice in as a sub-element connected to water if they want to make sense. But they don't. So why? Well, outside of the fact that this is a game, not everything has to make sense, I think the main reason why is because of the unique ideas and powers ice brings as a standalone element. The cruel choke of the winter wind, snuffing out all life that can't survive its chilling temperatures. Freezing lakes, rivers, and the fish within, and blanketing the earth in a cloud of snow. Wandering into a snowstorm can very much feel like you are trapped in some unknown world, with nothing to accompany you but the howling wind roaring in your ear, and the dropping temperature as your hand starts to go numb. The conditions, both metaphorically and literally, seem to separate your senses from the world around you. An indiscriminate killer, dressed in white. The best you can do is get loads of warm, thick clothing, some shelter, and a campfire going if you want to survive the night. Detachment. Stasis. But that's only half of the equation. For if you take a closer look at the frozen lake, the water molecules aren't just frozen in time, they are bonded together. A snowflake, after all, is just a bunch of ice crystals formed together to create a shape. and so too did mankind huddle together to keep each other safe and warm on those cold nights. And when the day broke, lighting the sky up with 1,000 colors, it was the most wondrous thing ever. Nature is cruel, but it is also beautiful, elegant, and vivid. To wield the element of ice is to wield this double-sided sword of contrast, maintaining distance from foes, keeping your allies close, skillfully maneuvering with the dexterity of an Olympic athlete, and bombarding the enemies with tons of hail, sharp ice, and lots of snow in uncomfortable places, all culminating in your master work of finding the opponent's greatest weakness and crushing them with that cruel grasp of winter. Doubly so if your ice powers come with the added perk of slowing down or outright freezing your opponents where they stand. And who else to be nominated for such a category than the splendiferous Silver Sovereign herself? How it took this long for the main series to create a pure Ice Elder Dragon that isn't also already based off an existing monster, I have no goddamn clue. But boy am I happy with the end result of that long and exhaustive wait. While a lot of monsters can claim the ticket of commanding ice, none hold the crown quite like Velkhana. Almost as if she was born for that express purpose, and indeed she was. As if to say, bah, these simpletons don't know a thing with ruling their domain. Kushala has to rely on Arctic terrain. Orochi, an unpopular subspecies based on an already maligned monster. Let me show you all how it is done. Born of the ice and Everwinter, the Queen of Permafrost gave us our first look at our winter wonderland in late 2018, and from that point onward, heralded a new Arctic dawn for all ice monsters. More than any other, Velkhana lives and breathes ice, and embodies what it means to be a spine chiller. By manipulating the temperature around her to a masterful degree, Velkhana bombards hunters with waves of Arctic wind, chunks of hail dropping out of the sky, clouds of frost that react to her and the hunter's actions, solid blocks of ice that burst from the ground, and liquid nitrogen to freeze the lower class into place for a most righteous riposte. All the while maintaining a modicum of distance from those peasants with a flurry of stabs that will surely leave them reconsidering. All of that and more, up to increasing levels of difficulty at her tempered and especially arc-tempered state, the latter of which will test your patience and dance skills with the increased speed and damage she has, greater reach, new moves, and crippling 30-minute timer hanging over your head. This flow to the fight puts an absolutely suffocating chokehold on the player's movement, limiting the ability to get in close and end it quickly, and certainly punishing improper spacing. Only through understanding the freezing point of her reach, her tempo, can you hope to survive the blizzard. And with smart use of the convenient blocks and clouds she creates to jump around and slide, you could perhaps gain the upper hand. The entire design of Velkhana is a proper dance against the elements, and goes to speak about the dedication put into creating such a magnificent elder. Everything down to the power set, toolkit, tempo, and even story and lore reasoning of her powers, through hardened scales of rapidly cooled magma adorned on her body, and a super cool fluid interacting with the air, is excellently well thought out. Is it the obvious choice for this category? Yeah, it honestly is. Does that mean it is the wrong choice though? Not in the slightest. The last of the archetypal elemental trinity, electricity is the element of energy, speed, precision, transience, as well as ingenuity. Lighting up the dark skies to the world's first men and women, these bursts of energy created constant wonder and intrigue, tempting humanity to ponder on what lies above them. Deemed similarly to fire as a symbol of deific might and providence, it was only later where mankind discovered that those bright flashes were not bolts of lightning hurled by Zeus, but rather sparks of electricity created by atmospheric pressure and heat, released in a single momentary burst. Through the efforts of scientists, we discovered that those very same bursts of energy propagate and power every single one of our bodies and mental faculties. The sting of a jellyfish, the shock of a catfish, and the sensory detection system of an electric eel, all powered by this fundamental force. Not content with leaving the element of the heavens undisturbed, however, mankind engineered and manufactured ways to harness Thor's hammer, nowadays being used in basically everything you can see around you, like phones, computers, entire towers that broadcast signals and power entire neighborhoods, tools that produce artificial heat, fire bolts of concentrated energy, manipulate and harness magnetic fields, bend waves of light and energy we can't even see or feel, and accelerate particles near the speed of light to smash into one another and collect data on the very laws of our universe. It is extremely clear to me that this once godly force has been cast out from heaven and is now the domain of mankind and whatever batshit invention he'll make next. Monsters who weaponize electricity are often fast, relentless, chasing after the very lightning they create and running circles around hunters, making very effective use of the dreaded Thunderblight status and its heart-stopping stun to plant the hunters 6 feet into the grave. Combined with the ailment of paralysis, and thunder monsters become a literal one-man army, capable of dashing around foes effortlessly, all while leaving bodies and crippled hunters in their wake. Another interesting thing to note, but not necessarily a rule of thumb, is the rule of cool. Thunder monsters I can confidently declare as some of the most popular monsters around. Zinogre, Astalos, Rajang, White Fatalis, Lagiacrus, Tobikadachi, the Narwas, and more. All of which packing gigantic style points with their flashy as hell stunts. For if these bolts of magnificent energy are only going to be around for a brief moment, why not make it the most amazing show it can be? In terms of expanding the horizon of what electricity can do, Rebidiora and Narwa make very strong cases to be the best. Both of them expanding more into the magnetic field area of electricity, and use that to either superconduct material and gather around a certain point like a nuke, or use it to levitate through the air and raise up the ground. However, these two don't exactly follow the key point of lightning being fast. They often have moments in the fight where they have to take breaks in order to charge up into the next mode, or lay down a thunder pole. What could I choose that fits the fast and aggressive nature while doing something unique for electricity? That works. You know, the process of scripting for a video is really funny. You start production on the idea at the beginning of the year, get your video making and streaming process put on hold for over 3 months, and all while you're going through a fantastic game of Elden Ring, the monster you had decided to put in this spot gets announced as a returning challenger for Sunbreak. Call me the prophet, I guess, because I just indirectly predicted Astalos in Sunbreak. The rebellious teenager of the Fated Four had always been a fan favorite for many, putting on an absolutely brutal show for both hunters and other monsters thanks to its 24/7 binging of Doom Eternal. And yet, for all that talk, it turned out he couldn't exactly take it. The textbook definition of a glass cannon until Nergigante came along. So leave it to Double Cross, or as it would be later known in the West as Generations Ultimate, to give Astalos a gargantuan update. An update that might have taken him too far, because now he's had so many steroids to the point where he is contested with Bloodbath as one of the hardest deviants to take on. Good God, Capcom, what the hell did you feed him? Transforming from a coil gun at base to a fucking railgun, the individuals designated as Bolt Reaver are a menace to any foolish hunter wishing to hunt down all of the EX deviants. Such efficiency they have in the art of killing that hunters who get caught up in the light show produced by the Bolt Reaver's shell disappear without a trace, leaving only their shadow behind. And the reason why is apparent. Take a regular Astalos, start it out at max charge, make it a little more tanky, vary up its attack patterns and speed, give it a bigger range on the AoE pulse from the tail, some cool flips it can do, an even higher level of charge, an electromagnetic black hole to pull hunters in for a dive bomb, and the creme de la creme, the pièce de la résistance, an even bigger lightsaber built into that horn of it that it can cancel into from a good portion of attacks, can have a very fast startup, and can one-shot hunters with neutral and even positive thunder resistance. Needless to say, your ass will be clenched and looking for any moment the monster can pull the death stick out, especially on higher levels. Compared to the other entries so far, it is almost refreshing just how basic Bolt Reaver Astalos is in its theming. No complicated metaphors or fancy talk needed about how it embodies the element through subtle aspects. No explanations on how your strategy needs to adapt to the fight. Just a pure, honest, brutal slugfest where if you wish to come out on top, you need to be just as fast and relentless as the Bolt Reaver, if not faster. A symbolism and design philosophy expressed not through words, but action. Just by looking at the footage I'm using, you get what I mean. Like a lightning storm, Bolt Reaver Astalos hits fast and hard, often without warning. And that is all it needs to do. The only hope I have for Astalos with Sunbreak is that if it does get an alpha, to please God, Lord Kulu art in heaven, not let it be a one-for-one copy of Bolt Reaver, or just worse in every way. We already have enough of those as it stands from this disappointing category. Rather than be a conventional franchise and go for any other elements like Earth or Wind, Monster Hunter decides to be extra messy and throw a wrench into the conventional analysis by introducing an element that is completely original. With Dragon as an element with no history behind it, I'm gonna have to give my consensus based on what little the game tells and its general meaning among the cast. Dragon within the world of Monster Hunter might as well act as the fantasy genre's magic element. Often taking the appearance of red and black lightning or smoke, this necrotic energy has a debilitating effect on the mind of those affected. Originally crippling weapon affinity by up to 50% back in Tri, but later down the line destroying a weapon's elemental capabilities. The correlation between the element and the well-being of the hunter through weapon affinity and elemental strength has led many people to believe that the dragon element feeds off the mind of its target. Many of the monsters weak to dragon are considered some of the smartest or strongest monsters in the world, with nature itself even developing its own countermeasures through gatherable items like the Dragon Fell berries. This is an idea which is proved even further with the introduction of Elderseal in World and Iceborne, where, with enough application of dragon elements by any weapon, it can break apart an Elder Dragon's aura or gimmick, as if the organs of the Elder Dragon start shutting down, slowing down vital processes necessary for a monster's survival. Defensive barriers like Teostras, Lunastras, Kushalas, Kirans, Velkanas, and Vals sputter out without enough energy to keep it going. Nergigante's black spikes, a biological function used not only for defense and offense, but also for reproduction, break apart with enough application. Something as otherworldly as Xeno'jiva is forced into a state of stupor, slowing down and even halting the monster's rage and constant acclamation of bioenergy from within, like a control rod being inserted into a nuclear reactor. Safajiva, as the adult form of Xeno, would of course be able to manage its power better. But even then, Dragon has the debilitating effect of draining the monster's bioenergy level faster than usual. In other words, we are actively inflicting instantaneous starvation on Safi, forcing it to go through its food supply much quicker. Interestingly enough, Nergigante, despite not having an element of his own, has dragon element weapons along with a high Elderseal attribute across the board. Outside of a select few other cases, Nerg's weapons are the best in terms of sheer frequency for applying Elderseal. Now, I know I said I wouldn't consider the elements of a weapon into the discussion of the monster, and that is still true because Nerg ain't on the list. However, I am bringing this up because of what it potentially means, where despite not having outward dragon energy, certain monsters could perhaps have dormant, draconian fury hiding latently within their blood, fueling their abilities or just waiting there. A thesis that is further supported with the existence of monsters like Valstrax and Anaru-Patasu, where dragon energy can be used as both fuel to power and augment abilities, and as a lane gene to be tapped into at death's door. As with anything related to harnessing the unknown, however, there is often a risk associated with it, one that inflicts horrible scarring upon both the mind and body. Self-cannibalizing the body to the point of perpetual hunger, boiling and burning the very skin of its user, inflicting immense pain if allowed to run rampant, making a generally rare, reclusive species actively seek out threats at high speed, becoming the aggressor in that instance, and transforming the very body of its user upon activation via a blood sacrifice. Even when not actively hurting their host, monsters with an affinity towards the dragon element, strangely enough, have that very same element as a primary weakness. As if whatever it is so unstable and volatile that it is ready to explode at a moment's notice. So, here's my metaphorical analysis of dragon. The dragon element is a physical manifestation of chaos and war. You could even perhaps call it the first and original element. Residing within perhaps each and every single one of us, the ability to push beyond our limits and call upon eldritch power to shatter the opposition in our way, tear down their walls, rip apart their flesh-bound bodies, and crush them into a mighty fine paste! Oh, it is so addictive! A near boundless source of power beyond our wildest dreams, applicable even in the field of gigantic siege equipment like the almighty Demolisher. Such an exquisite, unknown energy requires further research, further use, until nothing stands in our way! And then, just like the sword hanging above Damocles' head. It falls on 2 hours. Those who partake in the oath of the dragon dedicate themselves to war, violence, and bloodshed, twisting their minds and bodies with every use of it until there is nothing left but a monster. No reason left, just hunger, violence, and blood to satiate that ache. Not everyone is capable of walking the path of Ares, but those who do so are extraordinarily powerful, a cut above the rest. Some few choose to optimize and control their rampant urges in an attempt to harness it like a maser cannon, all while knowing that a single mistake can cost them their sanity. But the vast majority gladly throw themselves to the wolves, as long as it means their enemies shall be destroyed. There are no winners in war, only losers. And no other monster skirts that fine line better than Devil Joe. So we meet again, old nemesis. Hard to think that 4 years have passed since that day. I used to hold resentment towards you for what happened. The source of all evil, I said. A scourge that must be cleansed by divine justice, I claimed. So what happened? Well, I suppose I learned to hold some sympathy for the devil. Devil Joe is simultaneously one of the most terrifying monsters in all of Monster Hunter, but also one of the most tragic. An icon of fear for many as what was the pinnacle invader. It was a relentless pursuer that just wouldn't leave us alone, it seemed. No matter where we went, no matter the climate, it would be right there. The situation didn't matter. The monster we were up against wasn't even a consideration. It would still be there, throw everything out of balance, and perhaps make a meal or two out of either us or the monster. Devil Joe was our Godzilla equivalent, from the dinosaurian kaiju appearance to the atomic breath it wielded, as well as the severe displeasure it held towards other rivals. And we accepted that fact. Joe quickly became a mainstay from that point onward, an instant smash hit in every department that would appear again and again. An iconic giant monster that just wouldn't die, provided a challenging fight, and seemingly reincarnated every game or two. But looking back, I feel we all sensed the smallest bit of uncertainty and worry about the monster. Something just wasn't right with it. The numerous wounds and scratches that are strewn about its body, the muscles that would bulge with a surge of dragon energy, the fatigue the monster showed more than any other, the habit of devouring poisoned meats, other monsters, hell, even its own body. Something was horribly wrong with it. And the answer was staring us right in the face. To have the power of an elder dragon, something else had to be given up. An act of equivalent exchange. With that power came the monster's crumbling sanity and perpetual hunger, forced to wander the globe in a constant search for its next meal, never able to be fully sated for long. This is the Faustian bargain all Devil Joe are born to partake in. Constant agony and pain, forced to fight with every tooth and claw it has to have even the tiniest scrap of food. A lifetime of battle and bloodshed. But that isn't where the story ends. Should a Devil Joe be consumed by its hunger for too long, the rare individuals designated by the guild as savage occur. Spattered in blood and madness, the dragon energy it made a deal for so long ago runs rampant, bursting out from the monster's body in extreme cases of anger, burning all who dare approach the monster and the user itself. So potent is the buildup that the beast just can't handle it, vomiting excess amounts of it into hazy mists, long-range breaths, and concentrated explosions that blow up everything within its vicinity. These thick mists react violently to anything it touches, actively sapping away at the hunter's health and mind, and backfiring spectacularly when in a clash against a true Elder Dragon. But it's all worth it, right? The bargain was worth it, wasn't it? Is this the price that must be made to be the pinnacle of the ecosystem? And on that note, we are finally ending the video here. Oh boy! For a video only talking about 5 monsters, I sure made it as long as any of my other videos, huh? Well, to be fair, it isn't just the monsters. It is also laying down the background with the elements and how they could perhaps correlate to the candidate, then trying to tie it all back together. Regardless, I do hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. This was an incredibly fun thought experiment to pull through that really made me look closer at the design and overall metaphorical meaning of the monster, instead of just sticking to the usual talk from me of, I like this monster and its fights, here's why. It also gave me a chance to pull off some extremely flowery language throughout, something that I always appreciate whenever given the chance. Because outside of talking about objectivity, subjectivity, game design, mechanics, or balance, it gives the opportunity to show the audience what the subject means to you on a more personal level. The impressions you got from it, the reading you gleaned from the design, how the character speaks to you. Even if it takes a long-winded approach to get to the main idea, it is an approach that is distinctly me. Every bit as explanatory, passionate, and sentimental as I am. I wholeheartedly encourage other people to try this out as well, whether it be on a boss, character, level, mechanic, a game. Hell, it doesn't even need to be a game. It can be a book, a film, a TV show, a cartoon, or anime if you want. Try looking at it from outside of a purely entertainment angle, and consider what it means to you. The deeper meanings you glean from it all, what certain elements remind you of, all that and more. Because for as intrinsically in-depth Monster Hunter is, it is a shame that the best this department gets are videos on ecology and realism. Which, not to shame people for liking it or saying that it is a bad thing, just that we are barely scratching the true potential that could be earned out of this series. With all that out of the way, I have been the Monarch of Dragons, and I hope you all have a fantastic day/night wherever you live. Peace and Kulus Volt.